Vidmahe Shiva Tattvaya Dhimahi Tanno Mohana Prachodayat. Hello, dear friends, family, and welcome to those who may be meeting us for the first time. My name is Devi Mohan, and it's my honor to start a beautiful wave of sharing, heartfelt sharing of insights, knowledge, and blessings through this platform, beautiful Mohanji Official Facebook page, coming from our Mohanji Acharyas. So I was asked to start this wave of sharing, which will be happening once a week. And it's my honor to share just a bit from my journey and maybe a bit from the early years when it all started, when the path of pathlessness started. So those of you who may not know me, my name is Devi Mohan. I'm Mohanji's disciple and also, you could say, wife, but I prefer to say life partner because we journey together on this path. And I was blessed to meet Mohanji at the time of his complete introversion, before he ever knew he was going to be a spiritual master, renowned, known internationally, traveling around the world. Before any of this had happened, we have met in January 2007. So it was my privilege to witness the enormous changes happening in Mohanji and the way his consciousness just blossomed. So I have personally witnessed Mohanji's transformation. And in that way, when we have somebody physically present around us who journeys from individual to universe, and that somebody lives with us, maybe not all the time because we travel a lot, but now during Corona lockdown, we have been together last 1 month. So there's a lot that one can conclude. But more than the mind's activity, it's about the inspiration, it's about imbibing the energy, it's about connecting with the consciousness. And it's about understanding the intensity of a soul's experience within the body. And what happens when we completely change from self-centered universe towards complete selflessness. And what happens when we take enormous, unimaginable responsibility. So many people are fascinated when they see a spiritual master seated on a stage, surrounded by many people in the audience who are watching him, looking at him with adoration. So Mohanji says people look at the rose petals and flowers, but they don't look at the thorns that one has to pass on that road before you reach this kind of level where you can actually transform lives, or you can be a conduit of the energy that transforms lives. When your sankalpa, your clear intention, can become so strong that it becomes a command to the universe, because the heart is pure, because the mind is empty of unnecessary clutter, unnecessary thoughts, only what is needed. And so pure intentions, empty mind, and expanded consciousness that literally reaches out to the universe. So I've recently started my podcast where I have shared, I've read out the Babaji Beyond Definitions blog where Mohanji very humbly shared his Shiva experience. He avoids the words like enlightenment and any of the words that actually place him into a frame. he was very reluctant to take any title, even though many masters have given him various titles. Raja Yogi, Vishwamitra, now latest was Brahmarishi Mohanji. So only because the title Brahmarishi Mohanji came with a certain higher responsibility from the masters of Shambhala, Gyanganj, he started using here and there the title Brahmarishi Mohanji, but he prefers to be called Mohanji. And he prefers for people to connect to him as a friend. So I've, as I said, seen this journey of Mohan to Mohanji, if we can frame him in that way. And I was there when certain crucial decisions were made. And being a witness to those decisions, I can only say that awakening is not comfortable. It is not comfortable. It is not easy if we define ease by the comfort. So if you want to be comfortable, spiritual awakening is not for you. And this is the part we have to look into more deeply, because we are bound by our frames, by our comforts, by our concepts. And awakening is always much more than any of that. True transformation is always connected from us moving from self-centered world into selflessness. And that's why on this path, all the great Nath gurus and all the masters, especially we can see the life of Sai Baba, for example, is symbolized by social service. Social service is that tangible step we can take in the direction of selflessness experienced in action. Now, social service is not just giving food to the hungry. Let's say if you have certain IT skills, I can see Anand in front of me, for example. He has IT skills that we really need right now to spread the word or the seva that we are doing, and nobody else is there to help. So there's like a lot of load on people who have certain skills. Recently, I've recorded Awakening Yoga Nidra. There was Dejan from Macedonia who offered his software skill to help me connect the Yoga Nidra with the public. Correct? These are equally valuable acts of selflessness. And I was blessed to have a near-death experience before I met Mohanji. It was in the year 2000. And what I carry from that experience is that clear memory, how everything is recorded in our consciousness. Even though we tend to forget certain things from the past, all the mistakes, all the good deeds, everything is recorded. So especially the acts of selflessness, they are your true richness. They stay as your big pluses. And if people only knew how important it is to do something good for others without expecting anything back in return, even the thank you, even any recognition, simply acting out of that space of pure love, that's where a whole new universe opens up in us. So my journey with Mohanji, I believe, would not have happened had I not had this sudden urge from within to serve. And this urge from within happened because I looked more deeply into myself. I have been through a lot in life. There was a war in former Yugoslavia, and I actually look into the whole experience of all duality that I've been through, all the dangers of all the pains. I look at it with gratitude because that's what made me who I am. But after all those wars, after manifestation of my desire to study abroad that resulted in 2 amazing scholarships, so I studied in Italy, studied in America, fulfilled my dreams, got a job in Dubai, got an amazing salary, lived in a villa by the sea, went scuba diving, salsa dancing, yoga teaching, yoga teacher courses, yoga practice, martial arts, you name it. Whatever was on my desire shopping list, I was fulfilling everything. It was like I was in a rush to fulfill as if I knew deep inside that this would be a phase which will never come again. And it was an important phase because I feel these things had to happen. And then in all that attention on myself and my fulfillment, I realized I was not happy. I was not happy, no matter how much fun I had, no matter how many things I bought through shopping sprees in the big shopping malls of Dubai, no matter how many fun moments I had. Again, when I look back, when I look inside, there's an emptiness. There was an emptiness. And that's where the real journey began. The real journey began when I became honest with myself that something is missing. And so that's why Osho said the spirituality is for the rich people, because they realize after they buy so many things and after they fulfill all those myriads of desires, they realize the gap is still there. While many a times poor people live their whole life in that illusion. If I just earn more, if I achieve more, I will have the fulfillment. But it's not going to happen. Without unconditional love and blossoming in consciousness, we cannot have the fulfillment. And I really stand by these words because it's my direct experience. So we can belong to different religions, different spiritual paths. We may have a guru or not have a guru. But that realization that fulfillment comes out of complete expansion in the field of love and consciousness, implemented in our action, in our physicality. If that does not happen, we don't get the fulfillment. Because more than this body and this gravity, we are energy and we are soul in the body, a soul that chose to incarnate to fulfill certain desires and to fulfill a higher purpose. And this inner satisfaction will not come unless we start aligning with that higher purpose and start tasting those fruits and then get more and more inspired to come closer and closer towards that final goal. So Guru is someone who helps us align with our higher purpose. Guru helps us to change the inner breaks, the inner blockages that prevent us from actually aligning properly. So alignment, when it fully happens, we get into the right kind of flow. And that's why Mohanji says, on this path, it's like a mighty river. At any point in time, you realize, this is for me, you jump in the river and the river takes you. So once you get into the flow, once you taste your higher purpose, then nothing can take us back into the old self, into the self-centered mode of living. So I'll also touch upon an important aspect, which is the inner chatter. There is this moment, all of us are aware, when anything that happens to us, be it pleasant or unpleasant, but especially in the unpleasant or painful moments, the way that the inner chatter in us interprets the situation is the key moment on our path. So masters help us change that inner narrative. They help us change the way we flow automatically, subconsciously, in line with our karma and our samskaras, the painful impressions. We automatically have this inner chatter. We do not take a conscious moment to observe the inner chatter that happens when we are experiencing distress, pain, fear, and all these other negative emotions. So it all it comes like a wave and just sweeps us away, right? So this is a very important point. So when you have the blessing of having a master next to you, he will start chiseling, chiseling the rock until we come into that beautiful shape. So being around master is not comfortable. As I said, awakening is not comfortable. And being around the master is not comfortable, but it's something that makes us grow beyond anything we could ever imagine. And I would never, trade the blessing of having a living master for anything else in life. No other attractive offer could be replaced with this blessing. Because as we walk the path, we tend to justify our lacks, our minuses. We tend to justify ourselves. We tend to negate certain things, the heaviness that we carry, as if we subconsciously want those pains. We want that burden. We are just not able to see the big picture. And you can read many books you want to read, and still that awareness will not come. But when you have a master in front of you, he can see those energy records. He can see because he used to be there and he has crossed over, right? From the unit, he became the universe. He is looking at us from the universe standpoint. And he's demonstrating you can also reach here. We all have that capacity. But with how much of intensity are we walking in that direction? With how much intensity are we applying ourselves to reach that goal? Now, this is the key. Now, if some people approach the goal with a vague idea, with a concept, I'm just going to be in continuous bliss. So it's all about sitting, meditating, being blissful. Actually, that's not true. I've been blessed to meet one interesting energy doctor, and I met him at the very late stage, and he was already about to leave his body. But he explained that he made a big mistake. He dedicated himself to the inner practice. All the time he was practicing, or he was earning money to open some new company or to expand the business, and his practice was very deep, and he has reached really high levels of consciousness. But he said, only at the end, I saw that I repeated the same mistake. I did not serve. And if we do not serve at a subtle level, the golden energy vehicle, the vehicle of our soul that takes us beyond duality, it cannot form. So masters, Adi Shankaracharya asked the masters to come from the caves, the enlightened ones, come from the caves and serve the people. There is a very big message in this, because even those who have attained the highest state, it is expected out of them to share the bounty, to share that boon, to share with others who are suffocated in the ignorance, in the mud of the daily survival, in the darkness of complete illusion and maya, which inevitably leads to suffering. So service is the step number one. And then inner witnessing, connecting with the inner witness, and the ability, as I said, to take a step back and catch ourselves with that inner chatter. Catch ourselves in that moment how we interpret the reality to ourselves. When you have a guru, it's like a very strong relationship. It's kind of hands-on, tangible. And the greatest blessing there is that you can surrender everything to the guru. You can put the whole load onto him, right? So your expectations, your hopes, your mistakes, all of it you can put on him. And then it changes the narrative very fast. So this is how it works beautifully. If we have this idea of divine, of God, and many in Christianity feel God is a man with white beard and white hair seated on a cloud. It's a very limiting idea with no actual hands-on direct experience. So when the wave of the fears come, this whole puff of the imagined relationship, it just goes away. Now, if somebody suddenly points a gun at your face, all your ideas of God and the help, it all disappears. What's real? What did you experience? What do you really own? so strongly that what is your truth so strong that you could give your life for it? This is what counts. And this is what we get when we start having direct experiences with somebody who has blossomed in the consciousness and lives as a living example that all of this is possible. Then we can actually make big steps. We can actually achieve a transformation. Of course, there are certain people who come with a karmic agenda of awakening. Even if they don't have a guru, it may happen. So I'm not saying that unless you have a guru, you will not awaken. It is possible, but the chances are million times less. So it's very, very wise to understand how important it is to have a guru. How important it is to have clarity of where we are heading and bring in the love and the devotion. So when we combine clarity in the mind and selfless emotions, and those emotions combine with the clarity in the mind, we really enter into that creative responsibility. We start manifesting our reality. So this whole platform of Mohanji Foundation, Mohanji Spiritual Family, it started from zero. And I must say that this is exactly why I enjoy this path so much, the path of pathlessness. Nothing was given, nothing was served on the platter. It all grew organically. It grew through the word of mouth. People whose lives were transformed, hearts were touched. They came forth and offered to serve. And there was no big sponsor, no guru, no ashram, no setup. There was nothing. And the same thing happened when Mohanji set up Amukare Charitable Trust. He did not have a startup capital. He did not have a membership fee. So that was the time when I met him. I met him in January 2007, and that was already 7 years after he started Amukare. And at that time, there were maybe 10 people in the group, and they were doing amazing things, like even disaster relief, and there's just a lot of social service they were doing. And I just had this thought that I would like to serve hands-on. I was already part of another spiritual organization, which basically was inspiring us to promote the courses they were offering and all of that. And they called that a seva. Of course, it is in a way a seva because you're not taking money for it, you're simply spreading what they're offering. But I said, I appreciate that, but I want to do hands-on seva, real social service where I actually reach out to the poor. And this thought suddenly grew in me, and it became overwhelming. And that was the time when I became a yoga teacher, and that was the very first yoga course happening in Dubai. It was a historic event because for the first time in the history of Dubai, there was a mega yoga course where there were like 350 people. So there was like 5 teachers, not just me, and it was like a whole big teamwork happening. And that's where Mohanji never attends any of these things. And it just so happened that a friend of his was bugging him. You have to come, you have to come. You have lower back pain, you keep sitting, you have to come. So he finally agreed to come. And in my office, there was an Indian gentleman who was familiar with Mohanji's Amukare Charitable Trust. So that's how it all came together. And it was the sudden urge to do the service, and Mohanji being at that place, and that was the force that brought us together. My desire to serve, in a way, my desire to offer myself for a higher purpose. It was a very pure intention, and I was also blessed to suffer a lot and know how it feels to be at the receiving end. When I was a refugee in 1991, I survived because somebody donated some clothes and food to Red Cross. Otherwise, I would be completely hungry. I was hungry anyway, but I would be starved. So I knew what it means at a time when you're so vulnerable, when life circumstances made you the needy, what it means to get the help. We don't get to appreciate it because everything is provided. Only when we are really hungry, we understand what it means. It's a huge thing to have somebody reach out to you at that time of suffering and vulnerability. So I suddenly remembered that I've done nothing, you know. I'm now earning this big salary. I'm healthy, young. I can do the service. Why am I not doing it? So it was just the matter of timing and these intentions and thoughts. And that's where the bridge happened. But when I met Mohanji, that moment when I saw his eyes, there was a certain transmission that happened. There was a certain deeper connection and deeper recognition that happened in me. And I totally lost my breath for a moment. And when he looked into my eyes, I approached him to meet him regarding the charity. And when I saw his eyes, I felt, first of all, there was like a scanner that entered my entire body and went zoom in and zoom out. And secondly, I felt that only a part of me is looking at him, but his full attention is in a whole other universe within himself. At that time, Mohanji was practicing intensely, doing hours and hours of mantra chanting, starting at 3 a.m. and feeling his spine. So he trained himself, just like when you train your muscles in the gym. In the same way, he trained himself to be vertically connected with the central axis all the time. So no matter what he was doing, talking to somebody, doing asanas, doing, part of him was continuously with that flow through the spine. And that's something I caught in the expression in his eyes. And I even entered his phone number, and I put Mohan and then dash, and then I have to put some explanation, otherwise I meet so many people that I will forget which Mohan. So intuitively I put a description, a soulmate. Now in Serbian language it doesn't mean like in an intimate way, it's like a familiar soul, a soul that I know from God knows which time back. So that's what, like, the familiar soul or soulmate, that's what I wrote. And I just knew that we were going to meet again. But I was so busy with all this yoga and all this activity after activity, office job, this and that right away I did not get into it. But soon enough we met again. And then after we met for the second time, we went for tea and spoke. And that's where he, being introverted, he was feeling guided suddenly to open up, and he shared his experience about Babaji. So I shared all this in my podcast. If you're interested, I don't have time now to go into details, but it was the talk about the masters. It's about the reality of communing with the masters and being aligned with one's higher purpose. That totally just swept me over. I was like, I have to be in the company of this person. You know, I was not looking at him in any way of like in terms of romance or anything. I was simply in awe that I could finally meet somebody who had experiences much higher than me. So that inspiration and that sacredness of those moments then created a whole new universe in my life. So that's what I wanted to share. I promised I would also open up to some questions, because I can easily talk for like 5 hours if you ask me anything about Mohanji Master's transformation. So there's so many experiences and so much of grace. But if there's any question you would like to ask at this point, you can send a message and I will address that particular point. basically, on this path, I have noticed that. Just gonna look at the questions a bit. Okay. We have comments in Serbian as well. Okay. No problem. Okay, I will rely on Anand to read out the question to me so that I don't get distracted. I want to stick to today's topic of transformation. What Mohanji has revealed to me is that the fastest way to transform ourselves through our spiritual practice is to go vertical and combine that vertical awareness with the love in the heart. Now, the love in the heart is obviously not a romantic love, it's the unconditional love and the unity consciousness, which I said the easiest way to connect is to serve. Because just observe when you do any act of selfless service, you go back home and you sit and meditate, you will realize just how easy it is to meditate. This is a direct proof that there's a huge karmic cleansing that happens to you, and there's a support from the field of divine consciousness to you to be ushered into the unity consciousness. So you start seeing yourself in others. The love is that bridge that starts expanding you. It is in the nature of love to expand. So when we are in love, we want to share, we want to embrace, we want to expand. We do not isolate ourselves. Right? So if we combine the vertical breath with love in the heart, it's a very, very powerful formula for spiritual awakening.
First question has come.
Question has come.
First
okay.
question.
Mm-hmm.
Both of you were vegetarian before marriage?
The question about the food, both of you were vegetarian before marriage. Well, yes, I have. Mohanji was definitely vegetarian, even vegan. But he, when he was in his youth days, he told me that even though he comes from a Brahmin family, he rebelled, and for a while he tried the meat, he tried smoking. He's done all those things, and then as the awareness grew, he realized it's not something that he needs. So in my case, it happened as well. I gradually left. I first dropped the red meat, then the white meat, then I dropped the seafood, then the eggs, and the dairy came last, only after I actually watched the videos and I admitted to myself that I cannot ignore, I cannot turn the blind eye to the immense suffering of the cows, who are such selfless beings. So beautiful, and they are continuously abused and raped, and their children are removed from there, killed in front of their eyes. So all of this is a part of the whole process where we choose not to turn the blind eye when we start feeling connected with the vibration more and more. So we are less gross and physical, and we are more in tune with the quantum field of energy. We are more energy, we are more subtle. But the more subtle we become, the more powerful we become. It is said that when you open your heart, when your heart chakra truly opens, the speed with which you can materialize your thoughts and intentions is many times over. So once you move to the higher chakras and higher states of consciousness, you cannot afford to have those fits where you curse somebody, where you hate somebody, because it manifests. So divine will not support our awakening if we are not able to overcome those violent sprees. And violence is definitely, there's one thing that does not support our transformation and awakening, that's the violence. We cannot be in violence and be in oneness at the same time. We cannot be in hatred and love at the same time. It's not possible. And so most people are eating meat because they're in denial. They're teaching the children. They don't want to tell them this is a killed animal. They just say it's a meat. They make it abstract. It's a piece of something on a shelf. So removing the emotion from it. So I often give this example. We judge a lot the Germans during the World War II and the Auschwitz, and how people were just having their beautiful, joyous family dinner in the midst of and right next door to them is the Auschwitz, and there's smoke coming out of those chimneys where people are burnt to death. And they are not bothered the least. It doesn't reach them because they were taught that those people are like rats. They were taught that those lives don't count, or they turn the blind eye. So when we turn the blind eye, we are in separation. Again, we cannot achieve unity consciousness if we turn the blind eye, especially to violence. So I simply cannot, in any clear conscience, support violence towards animals any longer in any shape or form. So I cannot wear leather. It just doesn't. I was in Serbia now during the winter, and I saw finally the right kind of hat I want. I was like, finally I found it. I tried, it's a fur. There's just something, I cannot imagine putting that fur onto my crown. How would that feel to me? It's a huge disgust that comes for when you touch that material, when you realize that this was literally plucked out of an animal, and very often they're even alive, because then the quality is better. So this kind of horrible things that we do, we give ourselves the rights as human beings to do this kind of things. It's very sad. But with time, this will transform, and we will inspire each other to shift into a new reality. So I feel now with this coronavirus situation, it's shifting in people more than before. Yeah.
How to be enlightened?
How to be enlightened? Well, we have this joke, Mohanji. Sometimes in his humorous moments, he said, one lady told him, "Today I feel slightly enlightened." So enlightenment as a concept of the mind will not do anything in your transformation. So I started to stop using those words, because too many books or blogs or things are written, and people have the frames, they have the concepts. So if we haven't achieved the basic steps, if we haven't become loving and selfless, what are we talking about in enlightenment? What enlightenment? Enlightenment definitely is a very powerful energy that cannot pass through the meridians of a blocked person. So if you're in separation, in hatred, in violence, you have a huge amount of blockages in your system, and the body will not withstand the high frequency of enlightenment. So that's for sure. So let us first start, as Mohanji said, start walking from where you stand. There's no point fantasizing about something that's across the ocean. Start walking from where you stand. Start looking yourself in the mirror. Start seeing, what is it that can change? From where can I start? So simple changes, if we can start from non-violence, changing our diet, waking up early in the morning, offering some percentage of our time at least every day for selfless activity, and contemplating, asking ourselves key questions, and meditating, spending time in inner silence, and deepening that silence. So I would say these are the first steps to take, and then worry about the enlightenment later. Yeah.
I know I just started following you guys, but how come the two of you do not make any videos together? He is at home with you, so I'm surprised it's always just you.
Yes, the question is, why aren't Mohanji and I making any videos together? Okay, well, fair question. Okay, it's a concept in the mind. Husband and wife should be, making videos together. See, Mohanji doesn't give me any privileges. I'm not having any special treatment as his wife. So basically, my primary relationship to him is that of a disciple. And we have been brought together for a higher purpose. So all the wifey demands that usually come from a wife towards a husband, they don't hold any ground in our case. And sometimes when I see ladies who are like fantasizing about being with Mohanji, I was just like, okay, just try it if you could just try it for 2 days, it probably wouldn't make it. Because it's not easy to function in a union with somebody who is not even there most of the time. You think that he's in the body, but at the same time, he would have done 5 different things in different locations. I see the moment he lies down, within 15 seconds, he's either asleep or he's gone. You can see a change by his breathing pattern. And it's for real. So master is somebody who has mastered the mind. The usual emotional stuff are not interesting for him. He doesn't find any interest in that. So all these dramas and the marriage stuff and all, it's not interesting for him. He's fully dedicated to the mission and the higher purpose. It's only because I also am dedicated to the same higher purpose that we are in this marriage together. And we were brought together by masters. There was a direct intervention to bring us together. So Mohanji already had a previous marriage, which was a very unpleasant experience. And after he managed to come out of it and go through the divorce, he was kind of having this feeling like, do I really need to get entangled in any way? So basically, I can reveal this, that masters told him, you have, this is your last life. And there's one desire that was unfulfilled, that of our harmonious, fulfilling marriage. So without our marriage, our beautiful daughter Mila could not come. And Mila has brought healing. That was the deep pain in Mohanji and his parents when they lost the daughter who was run over by a truck. So all this, through Mila, the healing came. Through me, the fulfillment of that marriage, which is actually focused on higher purpose. It all has its meaning, So we don't have to necessarily act as a married couple. We don't have. It's not like he talks, I sit next to him and I keep my hands in a blessing position and comparing with Sri Ramakrishna and Sharada Devi or with this one and that one. There is no frame there, So Mohanji encourages me to not to act as his shadow and somebody who is quietly sitting next to him and blinking and, holier than thou. I'm by nature very bubbly and I'm very spontaneous. And my natural expression is that of joy and lightness. And I was blessed to have that even during the time of NATO bombing. I was going for salsa dancing. When people were down, I somewhere bring that in. That's my light, And I cannot be put into a frame of somebody's idea of a master's wife. So many times when he's introduced, especially in India, Swami, oh, namaskar, Swami. And then suddenly I appear and I'm like, this is his wife? Then it just completely confuses them, and he loves it, You will see Mohanji with riding a motorcycle with a bandana, or you'll see him in jeans. He doesn't like any of the frames. And he's here to show that, he was sent back. He was supposed to go to Himalayas into some cave. He would have loved to, but Master sent him back. He said, your task is here. So exactly this, what we are living now, is what he's supposed to give to the world. So every master has his unique expression. And as his wife and a disciple, I'm here to also probably convey some message as part of this whole marriage. But it's the message of being natural and authentic. I'm not here to fit into anybody's frame either. And initially I struggled, when I was not connected with myself enough, I struggled to please the Indians by certain behavior. Then when I go to my country, Serbia in Europe, then for them I was too Indian, for Indians I was too European. I was never, fitting into anybody's expectation. So I realized, I don't have to prove that what I already am. I just have to be myself. And unless I'm myself, I'm a fake. And if I'm fake, I'm not aligned with my truth, right? So our path is just so simple. As I said, ours is not the romantic life. Even our marriage day, we cut half of the marriage to go conduct a meditation. My relatives were shocked. It's like, this is a marriage party? I'm on a wedding party and you're leaving in the evening, like 6 p.m. We said, okay, sorry, we have to leave now. We have a meditation to conduct on our wedding day. So it just so happened, it was not planned, but there was no other venue available, whatever. So, but for me, it was entertaining because I knew from the very beginning this was not going to be any typical marriage, and it just wasn't designed to be that way. So I hope that answers your question. So I'm not Mohanji's equal in terms of consciousness level. I never claimed I'm enlightened. I was blessed to have several experiences of samadhi states. I had a near-death experience. I had communions with masters. There are so many blessings, but it's not my permanent state. So I cannot have any high claims that I'm his equal, but I'm moving in that direction. So if I'm blessed, it will happen in this lifetime. If not, we'll just have to surrender that part. None of us can actually know for sure whether we will reach or not reach, but all that we can do is to have the commitment and consistency and that full conviction that it's possible, and then just align ourselves in that direction.
How do you know if you are supposed to meet a guru or a master? How do you manifest to finally meet your teacher?
How do you manifest to finally meet your teacher? Yeah, well, Mohanji says the most powerful prayer is the prayer of gratitude. So I would say if you start serving and then hold that intention in your pure heart, have a clear understanding of the importance of having the guru, and start walking in that direction by starting to express love. But you can't have an expectation. If you're eligible, you will meet. When the disciple is ready, the master appears. But I feel that if we start serving, the chances of this happening are 100 times greater than if we are just living a self-centered life. Because masters love to support the open hearts. They actually, that's what they're here for. So they are happy. They can feel people who are empty enough to receive them. So if your heart is open, if you don't have frames and concepts, you don't have judgments, you simply open up for that possibility, then it will happen. So when I became aware of the fact that, when I was in the energy field of Sai Baba, and this time it was Satya Sai Baba in Puttaparthi, I became aware of that empty hole inside and the fact that I was not happy. And also became aware of the pattern that my previous relationships were all based on a similar pattern, that of me being stronger and me getting bored with this relationship and eventually coming out of it because I just could not fit into any of this kind of frames of these relationships and marriages based on just physical aspect and self-centeredness. And then I realized, okay, what is it that I want? And so I suddenly became aware, if at all I'm ever to marry, it would be somebody who is like a master. But then the thought came, but such people are not available for marriage, they're in some cave. And then a holistic doctor who's with me, she's very deeply connected with Sai Baba. She told me, it's a limiting thought. That's a limiting thought. You decided in advance it's not possible. So I agreed with her. Yeah, I was like, why am I limiting? He said, anything, if you're in the energy field of any true master, you can ask for anything, which is, if it's supporting life and consciousness and if it's noble, you can ask for anything and then surrender it to him and make it his job. Why are you bothered? Let him work for it. You just have clarity what you want, feel it with the love in your heart and surrender it. So she asked me to write it down. So I wrote down, okay, he should be spiritually awakened but unassuming. It was very important. I don't want a show-off guy. Then I said also he shouldn't be too clumsy, a bit of a sporty leader, strong man, because I come from the Balkans. And the third was the most important, that we serve the world together. So the previous person who asked why aren't we sitting together, it doesn't mean that we serve by holding the hands and we have, like today I had a 2.5 hour long meeting about Act for Hunger, a brilliant new platform Mohanji came up with to unite all our food seva, feeding of the needy, on one platform. And it's like, so, managing something, brainstorming, executing. So this is more of that Shakti energy. That's my role, because he is the mastermind. He brings in the idea, the clarity, he brings the power, but we have to do the legwork. So many of us, are here to support different teams, different noble activities within the mission. Is it for the children? It is for the social service. It is for meditation. It is for this, for that, knowledge. So many aspects are there. And anybody who wants to serve genuinely can join and find their most effective area of expression. So anybody is welcome. At the same time, when you come a bit closer to the fire, you should be ready for the ego bashing. And that's the part some people are not ready for. So, Mohanji said, if I was a businessman and I needed you to work for me to earn money for me, I would be maybe even, trying to win you over, cajole, and like how great you are, and kind of, come closer so that the masters are not like that. He will tell you, you're not here for me, you're here for yourself. If you want to serve, rise up to the level where you're effective. This is nothing. You've done nothing. That sucks. That's nothing. And he'll just step over you, But, when he does that ego bashing, you come out of this process like you're completely zapped, and you're like, for a moment you're confused, but you feel that there is no hurt in the heart. He has not humiliated you because he has this anger fit. He's done a pricking of the ego. And every time he does that, we come out of this with more energy and even more determination. I'm going to do it. I'm going to now work 10 times more. So you can ask any of our acharyas or any of our closer team members. We've all gone through the drill and we keep going through it. So sometimes we even joke about it. So when I hear him shouting at somebody, I'm like, oh, okay. But as I said, it's part of that being close to the fire. But it's all very loving in the end. And I would have never reached what I am today. In so many different ways, my dreams have been fulfilled. And this platform, even though it's not measurable in terms of money, as my parents maybe would have preferred, we don't have any big savings. We don't have so many tangible gross things. But what we have created is so powerful, and it's eternal. I know that many lives, after Mohanji is gone and I'm gone, what the grace that flows through the platform of Mohanji Foundation, our spiritual family, will continue to flow, and that's priceless.
What's your view about practicing yoga, meditation, or any kind of spiritual practice for women during menstrual time?
Women during menstrual time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Yeah. So it's very simple. During menstrual period, the apana, the type of prana which is for excretion, so flowing from navel down, is most active. So I'm a yoga instructor as well, so I can first start with the yoga aspect. You cannot do inversions. You cannot do asanas where you press the belly a lot, like Dhanurasana, for example. You cannot do strong stomach exercises. But aside from that, you can do all the other asanas. Another important thing about meditation, you can do any meditation, but in terms of a more powerful aspect, like, for example, Mohanji's consciousness kriya, he simply said, do not do the part where there's a gentle nudge towards Kundalini rising, because at that time, nothing moving upward is actually natural for the body, especially first 3 days, or it's individual, as long as the flow is strongest, right? So some women, depends on the how long is the cycle, how strong, right? But let's say, in general, first 3 days, I would not recommend any of stronger spiritual practices, asanas that are like inversions and very tough for the stomach. And also what I learned only in India is uniqueness to the temples of India and the Sanatana Dharma is the prana pratishta. So when prana pratishta is done, the transfer of the divine prana into a murti, into a statue, it doesn't gel together that you come close to those murtis at a time when your apana is very active. So that, again, it's not that you're going to make the murti dirty or that you are dirty. It simply doesn't match in terms of energy. But I would also say that this is the time when women are more vulnerable, and also they cleanse a lot of the environment. So through that excretion, there's a certain process of sacred cleansing. So this is very unique to us women, and it's very sacred. So I don't see the period as anything dirty or something to be ashamed of. On the contrary, it's what makes a woman. And that time, for a woman to embrace the power in the vulnerability is one of the key achievements of life. I've seen women who are far more courageous than men. When in the moments of life and death, you will see many women are actually more brave. This is a fact. It's because deep inside, a woman has a certain depth. And if she gets in touch with that depth, she gets in touch with a huge power. And this is the whole concept of sacred feminine. This is why you cannot reach Shiva until you pass through the mother's territory. So that's why it is Mother India, and that's why Mother has always been given the strongest of Shakti. So this is all part of the women's story.
How do you plan your time with your family, especially with your daughter Mila?
How do I plan my time with my family? And daughter Mila. Yeah, that's a very good question. And many times I've noticed, when I have to travel and Mohanji is traveling, I sometimes feel sad that this child, is without her parents. Like, luckily we have Yelena taking care of Mila when I'm gone. She's not left to a stranger or anything, but she does miss us, And I feel that she's such a special soul that deep inside she understands. And I do explain it to her that we don't do this for selfish reasons. But since she was born, she has shared her mother and father with other people. We hardly ever have family time. Since she was born in 2011, and Mohanji started actively with the mission in 2012. But already in 2011, there were people coming to our home. I come back from the office and there are like 20 slippers in front of the door. And there's his all the time attention is going towards the mission, So he cannot devote that active time for playing, picnics, weekend trips. None of that ever happens. Even our family vacations, they don't happen. Usually it's a part of some retreat that after the retreat, we catch 2 days or something like that. But at the same time, the beauty of the connection and the depth is very special. And Mila has always been so happy around people and so connected. And I've always carried her on my hip, and we would dance. And during the retreats, she was so happy with the people all around. She's used to the people. And that's, she just walked into the room. So it's part of her journey, And I feel that in so many ways, she has very special potential, and I would not want to impose it on her. I leave it to her to mature in her, and as she grows, she will display it. So we don't impose anything on her, but I know that she is a very special soul, and I feel blessed to be her mother.
Probably the last question. How does one get in touch with the sacred feminine that you are speaking about?
How does one get in touch
Get
with
in touch with the sacred
sacred
feminine
feminine?
you are speaking about.
Sacred feminine is a quality that's very deep inside. I feel that sacred feminine is, first of all, it starts with the selflessness. It's something that's way beyond the mind and expectations. And when the more selfless we become, and we embrace the sacredness in the sacrifice. The sacrifice not in a negative way, but in a positive. It's really rooted in the selflessness and depth of the vulnerability. So you see, I've discussed this at the end of one of the meditations. That whole, the moment when I delivered Mila was the moment when I got in touch with this power, and it was a journey. Most women experience this. During the delivery, you go through a part where you feel you are dying. You feel like this pain is so strong, the pain of the delivery pain, the contractions. It's so strong and it goes so deep within the pelvis. And the second chakra is also door to the subconscious mind. And in those moments, the woman who is delivering connects with all the women of the world, because all the mothers have gone through those pains. And there's just something so deep in that pain. And first you feel, I'm not going to make it, I'm going to probably die. Maybe the child will be born, but I'm going to die. This kind of thoughts come, and I know I'm not the only one who had it. And then at some point, I surrendered, and I was brought into the flow. And this flow manifested in the idea that I should just stand up with soft knees. I just placed my hands on my hips and I started swaying. My neck was soft. So I brought that in the conscious dancing, this insight that I had during the delivery. So when I did not try to run away from the pain, but I got into the flow. And there's something about the shape of the galaxies and the spiraling. It's, again, feminine. This is the woman's hips, the curves, the flow. It's never square, it's a flow. So these are the secrets of the sacred feminine. And then through that pain, you enter into the flow. And in that flow, the magic happens. So our Mother Earth is operating in a similar way. There's so much of pain that Mother Earth carries. But the sacred feminine is also there because she's all the time serving. And we are abusing her in so many ways and she's still serving. Right? So there's a very deep aspect when a child is born. In that moment, it's a complete surrender and vulnerability. And you feel like you no longer live for yourself, you live for the child. In that moment, it becomes the center of your universe. And in that height of motherhood and selflessness, the most sacred aspect happens. But Mohanji also says women who have not delivered, they can also experience this if they start serving the children who are in the need. Who don't maybe have parents or don't have support. So if we get into the vibration of sacred motherhood and service and selflessness, that's where the sacred feminine comes in. So women who are connected with the sacred feminine are the anchors, the spine of the family, the anchors of peace on earth. And that brings me now to, if you notice on my page, there's a video that came from Holy Land. I was part of a Unity Earth pilgrimage as a representative of Mohanji Foundation. And we went to the baptism site. And there was an old native lady from Ecuador. She offered a prayer that just brought tears to my eyes. And that was the real baptism thing happening there. The water element is feminine. The energy there was just so sacred. Then also at the Dead Sea, there was a ceremony where we invoked the sacred feminine. Then by the walls of Jerusalem, we invoked the sacred feminine. It was all about our pure intention of bringing sacred feminine back onto its pedestal on our planet. I strongly believe that our inability to understand the depth of intimacy that we experience in our intimate life, mimicking the intimacy with the divine. So it's like one is microcosm and macrocosms are connected, as up, so below. So without connection with that, with the feminine force and the beauty of a feminine surrender and vulnerability, passing through the pain, opening to love, it's a very, very deep thing. So unless we can honor that and always keep it in its rightful place on a pedestal, we cannot achieve within ourselves the balance of Shiva and Shakti and Yin and Yang. And without honoring the sacred feminine, we cannot enjoy true balance and peace on earth. So it is said that this is the time when finally the sacred feminine is returning. Maybe we will realize that Mary Magdalene was not a prostitute. There is so much of misinterpretation of the woman's power through her vulnerability and surrender. There was jealousy on it. There was possessiveness. There was an aggressive need to crush that flower. And that's what brought imbalance on our planet. So sacred feminine is just like a flower that flourishes, opens at its right time, cannot be forced into anything. And when it opens, it's fully vulnerable. And it chooses to open up in its vulnerability. So when we choose to sacrifice for something, when we choose to serve, it's from the heart. It's not something somebody can order us to do. There's a huge difference between making love and being raped. This is the thing. So right now we have been raping Mother Earth. We have been raping the cows for the milk. We have been imposing and we have been grabbing and conquering and competing. All these energies need to be balanced through the sacred feminine. So then only will we enjoy a beautiful life on earth. So sacred feminine is not just within a woman, it's also within a man. But it's more prominent in the woman because of her nature. Right? So I would say that it's the sacred Shakti that our Kundalini responds to, which is our opening into vulnerability, the courage to open and be vulnerable and remain vulnerable. It's a huge thing. All the rapists, aggressive people, they were actually victims in some way. They were not courageous enough to be vulnerable, but they are compensating that lack of fulfillment through their violence. So the message of sacred feminine is that of greatness and courage through vulnerability. That's how I see it. I think that my time is out.
Oh, by 10 minutes.
Okay, I was thinking to share a meditation, but it was not meant to be this time. Thank you so much. From now on, we are opening the floor to our Mohanji Acharyas. I would just like to add that I wish walls could have been made out of glass and people could have seen the grace that was just showered on us during this Acharya training. None of us expected it. The entire tradition of masters came to support this process. It's very, very big. And most of Mohanji Acharyas are still going through increased churning. Am I performing? Am I doing enough? Am I doing as is expected? But this is the thing, you can't catch it. It's about being courageous to live your truth and express it without caring what others will think. It's about making yourself vulnerable and naked in front of others in terms of ego. And, we all have our faults, shortcomings. But I hope you will welcome our Mohanji Acharyas and support them and also learn. As they learn from you, you learn from them. Same goes for me, of course, as one of the Mohanji Acharyas. And I feel through this heartfelt sharing of our innermost insights and beliefs and experiences, we will support our transformation because we are one. Thank you.